Welcome back to the Robert H. Jackson Center. Come on in and let's show you what happened here these past 365 days.
Last July, the Center, in partnership with the Chautauqua Institution, hosted the 18th annual Robert A. Jackson Lecture on the Supreme Court of the United States. The lecture was given by Riva Siegel, the Nicholas Katzenbach Professor of Law at Yale Law School. In light of the Supreme Court's end-of-term abortion decision, Professor Siegel's lecture, entitled Living Originalism in the Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization case, proved to be an extremely relevant and thorough analysis of the Supreme Court's decision regarding women's rights.
In August, the Jackson Center hosted the 14th Annual International Humanitarian Law Roundtable, where Ambassador Hans Corell, former Undersecretary General for Legal Affairs in the Legal Council of the UN, was the year's recipient of the Joshua H. Hines Award for Humanitarian Achievement. The evening included a stunning performance by Sukanya Burman, dancer and choreographer from Calcutta, India. The weekend's theme was Standing Up to Aggression from Nuremberg to Kiev, providing like-minded individuals to come together as a community for the opportunity for exchange of ideas and discussion.
This past year, the Jackson Center hosted several tea talks under the theme of Democracy on Trial, with the intentions of parsing out challenges to, pressures on, and opportunities for democracies and democratic institutions both in the U.S. and globally. Notable speakers included Erica Goldberg, Professor of Law at University of Dayton, Bei Feng, President of Radio Free Asia, and Atiba Ellis, Professor of Law at Marquette University Law School. The theme of our upcoming tea talks is based off of a famous quote from Justice Jackson's ruling in Brown v. Allen. The Supreme Court: final, infallible, future.
In September, hosting its Constitution Day program, the Robert A. Jackson Center commemorated the case of Plessy versus Ferguson, a doctrine that came to be known as separate but equal. The panelists included the descendants of the parties of that case, Keith Plessy and Phoebe Ferguson. With Greg Peterson acting as a moderator, they discussed the legal history of slavery and racial segregation in the U.S., as well as how it all might challenge civil rights in modern times.
Amidst winter celebrations, the Jackson Center celebrated our board members at the 2022 Founders Day celebration, expressing gratitude for their help in enriching the center.
In February of this year, we celebrated the annual Jackson Day in Warren, Pennsylvania, where Justice Jackson was born. The featured speaker for this event was the Honorable Benis Z. Aldana, President of the National Judicial College. His presentation, Trust the System, Overcoming the Underminers, discussed the levels of trust and confidence in the government Americans have, what can undermine that trust, and how we can address challenges to that trust. Since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the Jackson Center has hosted a series of programs and webinars detailing the pursuit of justice and what justice for Ukraine might look like. Last July, the Jackson Center hosted a webinar titled The Path and Obstacles to a Special Tribunal for Ukraine. Ambassador Hans Corell, Professor David Crane, Ambassador Anton Korinevich, Ina Liniova, and Dr. Paul Williams discussed how an international tribunal could work to hold Russia accountable for its actions in Ukraine. In December, the Ukrainian Bar Association hosted a webinar in collaboration with the Jackson Center titled Special Tribunal on the Crime of Aggression Against Ukraine, Where Are They Now? This April, Professor Crane participated in a follow-up webinar to update on paths to justice for Ukraine, continuing this discussion. In May, the Jackson Center collaborated with the Reg Linné Center for the Arts to host Ruth Bader Ginsburg Day in Jamestown. After a lively discussion and book signing event held by Jackson scholar John Q. Barrett and author of Notorious RBG, Erin Carmone, community members watched a performance of the play All Things Equal, The Life and Trials of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
In May, the Jackson Center hosted the second annual Battle of the Books program. This program started as a pilot in 2019 to address student desires to continue a literature competition at the institution geared to fifth graders. Local middle school students were tasked with reading more than a dozen books and rallied their teams to victory by answering trivia questions about the literature. This year, Rotary of Jamestown provided the grant to buy the books. The atmosphere is fun and entertaining, and the public is encouraged to come watch this competition.
In May, the Jackson Center and the Jamestown Bar Association came together to host the Ladies of Legend program, during which we highlighted the actions and legacies of women who were pioneers in the legal and judicial field in Chautauqua County. This included the recognition of 7 female firsts in law throughout the county, and the story of Kate Stoneman, who was the first woman to be admitted to the New York State Bar. The program also featured a distinguished panel of speakers, including the Honorable Elizabeth Wolford, U.S. Attorney for the Western District of New York, Trini Ross, and the Honorable Judith Clare. At the recent community forum, titled Barnett at 80 and What It Means Today, the Jackson Center hosted a free conversation open to the public. June 14th marked the 80th anniversary of the landmark case, West Virginia State Board of Education v. Barnett. In the case, which Justice Jackson wrote the majority opinion for, the court overturned a state law requiring a flag salute on the grounds that said law is an infringement on the right to free speech and thought. During the forum, members of the community discussed the complexities that Barnett brings, and how the Barnett decision might impact future cases that go before the Supreme Court. There was a specific focus on how the Barnett decision might impact the then-pending 303 Creative case. The conversation was facilitated and moderated by Professor John Barrett, Jackson biographer, member of the board, and longtime friend of the center. On June 9th, the Jackson Center hosted its inaugural Just Desserts fundraiser, during which we provided attendees with gourmet dessert and alcohol pairings at the center. As visitors navigated through the various stations, the dedicated team of employees, volunteers, and interns educated them on Justice Jackson's legacy and the work the Jackson Center does in the community. Thanks to the support of almost 80 attendees, the Jackson Center raised over $7,500.
Starting in 2016, Living Voices introduces and interacts with elementary through high school students about serious historical topics in the curriculum, such as the Holocaust, immigration, Japanese internment, suffrage, and civil rights. These live, interactive performances help the audience better understand the impact and consequence of each of these topics and the role they played in shaping our current world.
This summer, the Jackson Center hosted a team of 5 interns: Eliana Graham, Allie Lane, Caroline May, Sumitra Pandit, and Christina Podomarova. This year's summer interns would like to extend a special thank you to the Jackson Center and its donors and supporters for making the summer internship program possible. Throughout this year, the Jackson Center has continued its mission of furthering the pursuit of justice, equality, and fairness through the education of both local and international communities. These principles, which were personified and held in high regard by Justice Jackson, remain incredibly important today, especially as our society and world become increasingly divided.
The Robert H. Jackson Center would like to thank our friends, supporters, and community for making our work possible throughout 2022. We look forward to sharing our future events, projects, and endeavors with you all in the coming year. We would also like to extend a special note of gratitude to our Jackson Society members, whose leadership and contributions are an integral part of the center's operations. Thank you. And that's a wrap on 2022 at the Jackson Center. We look forward to seeing you all next July.